This is a Celebration 125 podcast.
Many of you know the Hardy family in the Agassiz area. Well, one of the Hardys is here today, better known from the comedy team Laurel and Hardy. No, just kidding. But actually, Don Hardy of Pioneer Motors. He's with us to tell us a little bit about the Hardy family and what he's done in this town over the years. Don?
When John approached me a little while ago to talk about my family's historical connection to Agassiz, I thought, maybe it should be one of the older people in my family. I kind of laughed at myself and I thought, geez, I guess that might be me at this point. Of course, I live in Agassiz and I've worked at Pioneer Motors for close to 39 years, but I'll get to that part of this story a little bit later. My great-grandparents and their children arrived in 1913 from Richmond, and they lived at Hardy and Gulf Road. I don't know anything about my great-grandparents, but Ted Westland once told me he was at their house with his dad when he was a young guy. He told me they had a small farm with many fruit trees around the property. They also had a pelting wheel that took water that flowed off of the mountain and generated their own electricity. My grandfather, Gordon Hardy, went to grade school in the Agassiz-Harrison area, and then when he was old enough, he went into town and worked for a guy called Jack Scrine at a repair garage called Pioneer Motors. It was located next door to the current Pioneer Motors, where that Indian restaurant and the laundromat is located. In 1938, he purchased this business from Jack. And I must mention my Nana. He married my Nana, Regina Vandale, in 1937. She lived with her mother and siblings on Else Road. Together they ran this business, and in 1942, my grandpa was the victim of the polio epidemic. So he spent a year in the Vancouver hospital. And since the time that I knew him, he always walked with two canes. So eventually he returned to work and ran it as usual, I'm assuming. They purchased an empty lot beside the shop on Pioneer Avenue where the current Pioneer Motors is, and he built the shop. It opened in 1948. And in that building, the main shop, the rafters in that building are from an airport hangar that partially burnt down in Richmond. They're massive beams, and it must have been quite a chore moving them to Agassiz over that Mount Woodside Road, as the bridge wasn't built yet. So yeah, when people that know things about building and wood, they sort of poke their head in the door, they're looking around, they say, wow, those are quite the beams. My dad was born in 1938 and spent his working life at Pioneer Motors. I presume the shop grew with the rest of the downtown business community during these times. My grandpa retired in 1980, and my dad ran it solo. Then came August of 1981, the year I graduated high school. My dad encountered some serious heart trouble and spent quite a while in hospital, and it took him a long time to return to work. This event set the course for the rest of my working life, I must admit. And when that happened, my mom said to me, I think you better go to the shop and help those people working there. So I thought about it for a bit. So I grabbed his keys, I put on his boots and drove his truck downtown. Being 18 years old, I understandably didn't know anything about running a shop with 8 or so employees. But with the help of some old guys that worked there, like Chip Parberry and Lloyd Johnson in the shop and Daisy McCrae in the office, these older people coached me and told me how things worked. Another longtime employee there was Alan Pryor, and he was key to this whole thing too. He worked for my grandpa too, so he'd been there a while. And I've known Alan since I was a young boy, and he's always been a family friend to us, and I consider him to this day to be just like a brother to me. When I think of this time, I got to mention two guys that I remember very well and have deep respect for, and they're Gunther Switchenberg and Siegfried Bartel. They both came to me, the 18-year-old kid in the fall of 81, and said to me, "If there's anything we can do to help you at this troubling time, let us know and we'll gladly help you." These guys were customers of my grandpa, and I knew them both quite well from town. It meant a lot to me, and I know they cared for my well-being, very sincere. To this day, I remember them both easily. These two men helped this town in many ways. Siegfried was on the school board, and Gunther was mayor and council for several years. Gunther's son Holger was a councillor a few years ago, and currently his daughter Kirsten is on the District of Kent Council. It took a long time for my dad to return to work at Pioneer Motors. I then had the pleasure of working beside him and with him for the next 20 or so years. I learned a lot, and we worked very well together. I thoroughly enjoyed this time. Speaking of Agassiz history, I remember Bert Ledoux from the hardware store. I recall many times my dad saying to me as we were in the office of the shop, "There goes Bert, he's got something on his mind." And we'd see Bert marching up the steps of the municipal hall into the mayor's office, because the mayor's office was on the corner, so we could see it from where we were in our front.
Right.
We could see Bert's arms waving around in front of the mayor. I don't know what was accomplished, but Bert soon emerged and headed back to the store. He was a good guy to the business community. It seemed like simpler times, I must admit. I enjoyed talking to Harry Bouchard as he was parked in front of the drugstore in his 1976 Suburban. He would be waiting for his wife Lillian to return from shopping. People that knew him will recall he was long-winded with many stories. I enjoyed it, I gotta say. Maybe I'll have good stories to tell if anybody has time to listen to me someday. Sorry, John, I've wandered off track a bit.
It's okay. That's okay.
But currently at Pioneer Motors, some longtime employees that I consider friends are Vince Shoddy, Dwight Schneider, Ray Ramey, and my sister Jennifer. The five of us, I've never really added it up, but we probably have a combined total of 140 or something years working on that corner at Pioneer Motors. My dad worked with his dad. I worked with my dad, and now my oldest son Evan works with me. I enjoy working with him. He makes me proud. I could talk at length about my town and the things that have changed and the things we've seen on that corner. I'm proud to be a part of Pioneer Motors. I guess I'll finish this interview by thanking John Oliver for doing this for our 125th Agassiz celebration. I thoroughly enjoyed being raised in Agassiz and having raised my family in Agassiz. I'm proud to be an Agassiz guy, and I guess we'll see you all at our 125th party in July and August, and I guess I'm done, John. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay. Well, before you run out the door, it's your place, so
Yeah.
I'll be running it. I'll be running out the door. That location at Sheehan and Highway 9. I mean, that's an incredible location you have there for Pioneer Motors.
Yes, I guess I kind of take it for granted, but a lot of people say you're on the hot corner there, and I enjoy watching the cars go past there. There's a lot more cars going past there now than there used to be. Don't know if I like that, but that's progress, right?
Yeah. At the start of your talk, you mentioned family at Hardy and Gulf Roads. Hardy Road, was it named after your family, or where did the name come from? Do you know?
I'm assuming because I guess in 1913 maybe they were the first people to be on the road or something. I'm not too sure, but you can imagine there wasn't very many people in that area.
No.
In any area in town.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Don. This is really interesting. Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.